La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti, everyone. So I'm changing it to benvenuti rather than hello to everyone. So benvenuto and ciao to you, Matt. How are you doing?
Ciao, ciao, Fabry. Doing well. Hope the week's been going well for you.
The week has been not different than last week. It's almost like it's one of those Groundhog Day something.
It does feel like that.
We
It's
didn't.
that time of year too, kind of a little bit.
We didn't lose though. So, okay. So for whoever doesn't really follow too much Genoa, but is following our podcast, and we love you. We should say that Genoa has played against Como at the Ferrari, so in Genova, and the match ended 1-1. So I guess that'll be the most highlight portion of at least the first half, anyways, of the episode. And let's just start with some hot feelings that you have since that match that happened during match day 13. That's 1/3 of the championship that has gone by. Genoa is now on third spot, not anymore second, solitaire, but still second spot. 2 points to Regina, 7 points to Frosinone, which I still don't believe that's going to last too long, but no offense to them, of course.
It's hard for us to doubt them at this point a little bit, but I'm with you. It does feel somewhat strange that the gap is the gap at that period of time, and this is what we're looking at. I mean, it just sucks. Look, you're right. It was not a loss. We can say that much, but we have to say, obviously having I think a pretty disappointing match against Regina. As good as Regina have been, we need to give Regina credit. Dan out there is going to be listening somewhere, happy that we're saying that. But this was a match we needed to respond. We're playing at home. We're playing against Como. Como had not been doing very well in the league as a whole. And we kind of desperately need the points. I understand we're sitting right now at third place, as you mentioned. So we're 2 back from Regina, who are in second and automatic qualification places. So it's not at all like this season is too far gone or something like that. But it feels like really a missed opportunity.
It definitely was. We're going to dive deep into the match, obviously. I'm going to start just to give a little bit of highlights of what has happened, I guess. And we can say that Genoa started, I would say, bad. Como so the interview was saying that Blessing was saying that Como was going to play the attendance type of approach, where they were like going to wait to what Genoa was going to do, and then they were just going to react against that. Well, that's actually not what happened. And we saw already, perhaps, I can't remember now what minute, but early on, Como had gotten a goal, which was disallowed based on the foul by hand foul.
Handball. Yeah.
Fortunately, a few minutes after, so exactly around the 17th, and I'm going to hopefully remember about it, but I'm going to get into the fact of a semi-assist by Sabelli, where it got deflected and it gets to Coda. Coda gets fouled into the box and he gets another penalty. Penalty number 4, if I'm not
about
mistaken.
to say, I think it is 4, and you were spot on. I think the foul maybe happened in the 16th minute, 17th minute. And exactly right on the goal being ruled out from VAR. That was 4 minutes in from Como. So some early action in the game for sure.
probably small parenthesis, probably a small loss of memory. I can't remember if I said that, but kudos, all like hands up to our Massimo Coda to be MVP of Serie B of the month of October.
Yep.
Just wanted to say that. And he is at goal number 6 now, if I'm not mistaken. So first half ends with 1 up. So that's good on the result, but on the numbers doesn't look good. Como is way more reactive, is way faster, is way more faster to get on the ball. We look like we're sleeping. To your point that you said earlier on, we were supposed to have a reaction compared to the match that we had at Regina.
Yeah.
While even though we are 1 goal up at the end of the first half, it didn't really look that way, didn't it?
No, I mean, and this is, I think, the biggest criticism. There's a lot of conversation happening right now about the future of the club, about the direction we should go. Again, I understand some.
Oh, you're going to go to that already, are you?
I'm pausing it, but look, if you're watching a game, this is what you're going to be seeing, right? Like, we need to have a response and we need to have urgency. We've talked a lot of times in this podcast about how, like, are we exactly setting our team up for success with the formation that we have? Do we have exactly the right pieces to compete in the way we want to compete? But regardless of either of those things, like, we need to be on the offensive. We need to be a lot more proactive in trying to make things happen. And it didn't really feel, it didn't seem like that, even going up into the half at 1-0.
Are they confused? Is Blessing confused? Is the team tired? Do we not have the right players for the module or for the higher? They gave us higher expectations of what is actually happening. Is there enough room to do as much as we could or should be doing with the so highly competitive Serie B or Serie A2? What's your answer to that one?
I mean, there's yeses to a couple of those things in there, I think. I'm not sure necessarily Blessin is confused. I think Blessin has been remarkably consistent in what he wants to do. I don't know if it's necessarily what we should do. We have it's surprising a little bit, I suppose, to see the flip between Martinez and Semper and all this stuff going on there. But, I think it's always been 4-2-3-1. It's always been kind of these 3 attacking midfield players and Coda up front, and then some combination of Strootman, Badel, and Frendrup. I think we've seen Frendrup back.
Let me stop you right there, though.
Yeah.
Let me stop you right there. 5-2-3-1, yet initial beginning of the second half, which we still have to talk about, but 4-2-2 immediately right off the bat. Why? And actually, that made probably a little bit better. However, it ended up taking the goal because what happened was that at the so we started with Yeboah right off the bat on the second half.
Yeah.
But like about 20 minutes in, Cherry does this goal, which was like, what were you doing, Mr. Defense? And that's another point that I wanted to ask there, is saying, what's happening? We were almost considered like, remember how many episodes we were saying, except that fluke match of Parma,
right,
we were considering not only ourselves, but everyone was considering that Genoa was like a very strong defense. Yet, since I'm going to say the second half of Genoa Brescia, so Genoa Brescia, Regina Genoa, and now Genoa Como, what's happening? Like, it's changed. We've become like a, easy to make goals, do goals, and play. Like, even Como themselves. So the actual interview that I heard vaguely, I read actually about the coach Moreno Longo, which is from Como. He basically said, we put Genoa in difficulty by playing very high, and the pressing was high again, like a lot of a play ball and high pressure above, like on a top pressure, like on the forward side. So almost like the same style that we were supposed to be playing, which this Gegenpressen, which I haven't seen in a long time.
It's a really good and interesting point, actually, that we're not really playing in that manner as often as maybe it seems like we would be doing. And I think in some of the earlier parts of the season, you saw kind of every player, no matter where they were, applying that type of a pressure. I mean, it is a little bit weird, I think, because I wonder if our players and our system match what that requirement is. I wouldn't say we have a bunch of speedsters in the lineup, and we are relatively old, I think, in certain kind of positions or crucial ones. And so you can't always expect us to kind of be playing that way. And I think also I've never really been, as much as I do believe in the defense, and I'm with you, we do need to figure out and talk about the fact that it's been 6 league matches since we've held a clean sheet. And we've had some unlucky things there. We had kind of a fluky penalty at Cosenza. We had a very last minute goal that we conceded in the match against Brescia that ended up resulting in the match in a tie. Ternana, I think you can give a pass. Even Regina, maybe you give a little bit of a pass. And we're not letting in ridiculous goals.
I'm not giving a pass on the Regina. I'm sorry.
Well, what I mean is we conceded 2 penalties in that match, and
fair enough.
We're playing against one of the better kind of attacking sides in the league. And so when you look at it on the whole, perhaps we're not conceding a lot, but we still are conceding at least a goal per game in that stretch. What I was going to say a second ago is, as much as I do think our defense is solid, at least in principle, I'm not sure we are technically gifted in terms of beating the press. And I think that's part of what you're saying is how teams are playing us is they're pressing up on our players. And we're not always in the way where we can just kind of dink the ball around and pass our way around it in a way that is, at least in a way that feels confident, I guess you could say.
So there's tons of here still to talk about, but let's just quickly touch upon one topic that you actually just brought up, which was now Semper 2 matches in a row.
Yeah.
Mind you, the first one was because Martinez had an issue with his shoulder. Second one, which was the match against Como, I'm not too sure if he had won the likings above Martinez or not, but nevertheless, it's 2 matches in a row that we see Semper. And I'm looking here at 11 goals conceded. I'm just doing some statistics off the fly here. 11 goals conceded. Take away the 3 fluke goals of Parma, they becomes 8. 5 goals with, I'm going to take those because they're just like so weird, right? Mm-hmm. Forget about a few penalties that were like the Crotone, the Cosenza match and whatnot, mm-hmm. But and even like Regina. But even though it is with Regina, I'm seeing 3 goals. It's a point what I'm trying to get at, of course, but the 3 goals conceded under Semper. Semper shows a lot better quality under certain aspects compared to Martinez.
Yeah.
But are we having a better defense under Semper?
Well, I mean, it's right to question some of his. It's like it's hard, and you're right. And it's also very difficult because I feel like these keepers are like very, very different in what their value is. You know, Martinez is, I would say, a decent shot stopper, but he's probably better at distribution. And he's, I think he's good in decision making generally and some of the things, but we've seen him spill the ball a couple times, and that was an early kind of gripe when the season began. Semper is not unfamiliar with a spectacular save. You'll see him have some remarkable kind of reactions to some balls, but he does make some mistakes too. And he's definitely less solid with the ball at his feet as well. So,
which we knew.
That was the whole thing. That's kind of what we thought. It was somewhat surprising, of course, when the season began that he was not the number one. But the presumed assumption at the time was, well, okay, Blessin wants a keeper who's a little bit better on his feet, and maybe he's more willing to take the odd error in place of a player who can more properly distribute the ball. I think it's concerning to see that we're not going with our original number one keeper already, a quarter into the season or a third into the season, as you mentioned. And it does. I know there have been comments in the press about, okay, well, we're going with the best keeper in the training and whatever, but I just don't think that like flipping this around all the time is really good for anyone. And we need stability in key places. So I don't really understand it. I don't think we drew the game because we had Semper in goal. I don't believe that.
No.
But I think that also I don't understand why we're tinkering with this position beyond an injured player when we need to put a player in. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. The tie is fair at the end. Second half, as I mentioned to you, just 20 minutes in the second half, the Como actually ties, but luckily seemed like there was a reaction 2 minutes after there was a goal by Dragozin, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, VAR, rightfully so, mind you, got annulled based on the fact that there was Puskas that was. I'm laughing myself because I'm saying Puskas and Dragozin, which they're both from the same national, and they actually got called up by Romania. So, anyways, sorry, just a small stupid parenthesis, but I'm saying that Dragozin's goal got annulled because Puskas was offside, and unfortunately, that made that reaction, which was just 2 minutes after. And probably that's what hit us maybe also as well, on top of the low performance and whatnot, in order to not have that much of a reaction that I was hoping for.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, what do you take out of that?
Well, there's a lot, I guess, to take out of it. I think that you're right overall in the whole as well, that a draw was probably a fair result, and I think that's probably the most damning thing that we can say about the match. For a team that has aspirations to go up to Serie A next season, to be not really to be level on shoulders with Como is just frankly not acceptable. Like, it's something that we didn't deserve more out of this game than a point. You could argue that maybe we were fortunate to get out of the match with a point. And I think this is where a lot of the same criticisms that have been lobbed against Blessing, and maybe not as much against our players, but should be more so, come into the frame. Because you wonder, are we too easy to figure out? Are we not deploying our players in a way that's allowing them to be successful? Is there something that we're not figuring out that really we are missing here? And where's the problem? Is it with the manager? Is it with the players? Is it with the recruitment? There's a lot of stuff. I understand the negativity around it, and I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Well, last podcast, I was definitely a lot more negative. Right now, I'm a lot more critical, which is, I guess, a very different type of approach anyways. So one question I have is so I'm not questioning Blessing himself. We're going to get into the fact of rumors and whatnot after, but why was Jagiello left on the bench? Question number one. Question number two, why was Koda subbed and so fast, so early on the match? Okay, let's just answer those two questions if you can. What your thoughts around that?
I don't understand the Koda substitution at all, because I really don't believe that we have an adequate kind of player behind him. So taking him out that early for me does not make really any sort of sense. I'm not a big fan of continuing to chop and change the three players in that 4-2-3-1 formation. I was in a way kind of interested about Portanova in the starting lineup. But again, it's kind of, I don't know. I think if you have Jagiello coming off of the bench, the argument is, well, you at least give some sort of firepower to come back in the second half. And I think that was something we talked about in a previous episode, where it kind of feels like with our best 11, we don't really have a good set of rotational players. And so you could possibly argue that having Jagiello come on in like the early parts of the second half could be advantageous for us. And we have seen him light a spark before. So that's the only thing where I can rationalize this being something that makes sense. but
Again,
I still am kind of stretching a little bit to make that rationalization.
no, it makes
You
sense.
think?
Let me add on top of that, which we basically touched upon it a little bit earlier, but what's happening to the defense in your mind?
I don't know if I think honestly, like we're playing a much more even game these last several matches. Like we've not looked like a tight, and this is why I think as Genoa fans, there's a lot of anger and frustration and concern. We've not looked like a side in these last 5 matches that is dominant in Serie B. We've looked like a Serie B side.
Well, I'm going to be on the defensive side to say no, maybe not 5, definitely 3. Based on the fact I'm gonna count into that just the Brescia, Regina, and now Como. Before that, even though we were not having a great show, we were still getting those points. See Ternana, see whatnot, right? So, and I'm not trying to defend Blessin himself, but he has made his mistakes. But I still want to give him kudos to the fact of reading into it. Didn't work well, but to the point of changing the module from 5-2-3-1 to 4-2-3-1 to the 4-2-2-2. So he's showing that he is able and thinking about maybe it's time to change because of what? Maybe too early, maybe not early enough at times in different matches and whatnot. The reaction was definitely not good. And that's one of those things where you can't point the finger to the coach when the players are not playing that well. One would argue to say maybe they're not playing that well because they're not in the right formation, not in the right spot that they're supposed to be.
They don't have the belief or whatever. I mean, yeah, I mean, like it's always difficult. It's much easier as a fan to kind of look at the way that the team is set up than the individual players and call the shots there because you wonder what's happening specifically. But I think what I meant regarding why our defense is maybe not as airtight as before is I think that honestly the games are even. We're not looking at games where we're always dominating the possession or the shots on target or things of that nature.
Actually, definitely not against Como. While we were doing even against Regina, if I remember well, we were doing well with Rick. Forget about the shots on goal, but because it's just like making me angry if I look at the Como
remember that stat.
Even the Regina was actually worse, so a little bit better with the Como at the end.
Right,
but we lost almost the possession. You're playing at home. Fifth, at least these are the stats I'm looking off of. I'm not going to do advertising, but nevertheless, 53% for Genoa, 47% for Como. Like you're playing at home. You're not playing away. We were doing those type of numbers, 53 or 47 when we were playing away. At home, you're doing like a 53% ball possession. Like what's going on?
Well, I know. And I, this is what you'll have to remind me, our listener from the Genoa club in the UK who had pointed this out beforehand, but Zach. So I think this is the theme, and this is again why there's been a lot of kind of Blessin related conversation lately. We have a very specific way we tend to kind of work the ball, and we have a very kind of, if shall we say, predictable nature in how we're playing the game, and I think you're seeing teams respond and react to that right now. And it's making it really difficult, I think, for us to really get a whole lot out of the matches. We look a lot more sluggish. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of inventiveness in the way that we're kind of playing as a team or moving the ball. And it kind of feels like we'll get a chance here and there. We'll get a half chance here and there. We've got a brilliant attacker in Massimo Cota. We have some great players, of course.
MVP.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like all is lost here, but it just doesn't look like we can respond to this. It's like people have shown a spotlight on how we're trying to play, and we're not really able to react to that change in tactic. And maybe 4-2-2-2 is a solution, but I'm not sure.
Actually, let me add to that. There is an issue perhaps even with I've never hidden the fact that I'm not a fan of the 4-2-3-1. I even have to think about it. One thing we do not have are externals. So we're lacking in good quality external. One would say, well, we have Goodmanson. Well, when he's playing well, if you remember, we were doing amazing results, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, do we have someone else on the other side? No, maybe we had a little bit hefty when he was at his prime or when he was doing well, which we still have that question mark there. And I was actually listening to a podcast, or actually not, and it wasn't a podcast, but it was like in a program in Italy and whatnot. And they were talking about the fact that seems like Blessing is not allowing the left back and the right back to go beyond the 2/3 of the field. Yet, if I look at Genoa's goal against Como, even though it was under from a penalty, it was because Sabelli went way up there, gave the ball, which was deflected, but nevertheless, he gave it to Coda. And when I see Sabelli going up and like he's doing very great job and whatnot, they're doing a lot better because maybe we don't have good externals. Those three of the 4-2-3-1, they're not externals.
I mean, maybe I'm out of the loop on this one. I don't necessarily think that we are not getting up there, but I agree with you in a similar position in that, like, if we're getting any sort of service from out wide, it's coming from our fullbacks. And in a way that's kind of concerning, at least in terms of how we're lining up as a team. Because, right, unless we're playing like really, really high up and we're really, really kind of going for it, kind of like Liverpool style, where you've got just like, the players bombing down the wings all the time, a bunch of people in the box, a lot of kind of opportunity there. There's less that maybe we can get. And I think that's part of the problem with the 4-2-3-1 is our attacking kind of midfield players really are like attacking midfield players. They're not playing all that out wide, and we're kind of pretty close together a little bit in how we're kind of formed, I guess. And so I think I agree with you. We have players on that side, especially with Sabelli. I mean, Friendrup really is much more of a defensive answer when we have to deploy him. And I think that was out of necessity, not out of kind of choice necessarily from Blessing to play him as the left back. We saw him play a little bit as a right back last season, and to decent effect, actually. But I think we need to figure out something else beyond, and here comes a cross from Sabelli, or before, and here comes a cross from Payet. Like, it's just like, it's not enough. And, Goodmanson is a talented player. Jagiello is a talented player. Ramu is a talented player. But the way that we're using all three of those guys is not in a way that where each of the three of them can play well with them together. Like, we're not setting up a Ramu to play well with Goodmanson. We're setting up a Ramu to play in a little kind of box by himself somewhere in the third of the opponent's pitch, and it's not working. And so, like, we've got a little bit of a break here before our next match against Perugia. And I think the hope is just that we can find some sort of way of going back to the drawing board and saying, you guys, it's been a while since we've really clicked as a team in a game. Let's try to figure out something else and do something else, because what's happening right now, it's not effective. I will say, so here's one counterpoint to all this. I believe, as much as there's been a lot of kind of clamoring for Blessing's head and changing things up and looking in a different direction, I do believe generally that many Genoa fans, as much as we feel like maybe that's a necessary thing, are probably not looking so much at continuing again to change the manager out as much as we're used to that. I think there's an element of stability that we want.
Okay, hold that thought. Let's go to the break and we'll get back to that.
All right.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message. Welcome back to the second half of episode 25. So we did the 24. Now we're going to the 25. Anyways, So yeah, I stopped you there for a second because I wanted to. That's a very large conversation. I think we exhausted almost to the point of what happened with against Como.
I agree.
Ended up with a 1-1.
Yeah.
We are definitely not happy because we were expecting some sort of a reaction from the players.
Yep.
And or I think we saw the reaction from the coach, but whether it was because it was a wrong module or whether it was because of the players that were not pumped enough as much as Como was, which almost that's why I was looking at that replica happening with the Regina. It didn't happen. Nevertheless, has been raising for long now. More and more and more people, critics, journalists, and whatnot are talking about blessing out.
Okay. So here's the contrarian's take. Blessin has Genoa in not an unsalvageable position. We are third in the league. We are 2 points away from automatic qualification. I know that automatic qualification was not exactly our goal. It was winning Serie B. But
well. That's like the goal. Well, yeah. Just give me a second. So the goal is to qualify without the playoffs, definitely.
Correct.
I am sure that the goal was to do that. I guess out of that, we definitely said because we're the most strongest team, blah, 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 that is to win the championship. Do I want to win the championship? Absolutely. Hands down, no question about it. I think Frosinone's spell is not going to last for long for a lot of reasons. They don't have that bench. And it's just that, that turnaround around the January, February mark is always going to happen with all the teams. For us, it's probably happening now. Anyways. So going back to Blessed, what do you say?
Well, my point is, guys, we're not that far away from the goal, if that's the goal. Like when we're saying what our main priority is to be promoted into Serie A, of course, that's what we all want. That's the main thing. We do not want to be in our current team state to be in a promotional playoff situation for a number of different reasons, but I think also because we have the squad that should get us to that place. We're 2 points off of that place right now.
Let me make it a little bit simplistic not for you, but in general, very, very simplistic as an approach, just to make it very simplistic. I don't even know how else to say it.
Yeah.
So let's say if we were to make that that goal that we were targeting.
Yep.
Do you change the goalie? I'm sorry, no, the coach. Do you change the module, or do you react in the January market?
I think the easiest solution in the situations outlined is to change the coach. I'm not sure.
Is it though?
Is always best. You wonder who we would put in place of him. I think if you believe as a fan or as a whatever that Genoa have superior talent, enough talent to go on, that I think this is why a lot of people think Blessing should no longer be in charge. But my point, what I'm trying to make with all of this, is that basically we've had a bad run of form. We have a time to react and reassess, and that time is right now. And if we're not seeing that react and proper reassessment coming after this kind of 2-week break that we have and playing again at the end of November, then I think we've got a much more serious thing on our hands. I do believe. Go ahead.
You're definitely on it. We did have a good reaction from the previous break. If we did change coach, you mentioned before we started recording a name.
Yeah, so this is I think, I'm not sure how qualified the rumors are, but the rumors are certainly out there about Marcelo Bielsa. And so
who is Marcelo Bielsa?
So Marcelo Bielsa is a Spanish manager. He had most recently and in fact, the kind of astoundingly, his longest tenure was his most recent job at Leeds, which is really like 2.5 or 3 seasons or something. And so he's been he's had a role at Lille. He's maybe most famous before Leeds for his time at Athletic Bilbao. He's had kind of this sort of been lauded as a kind of football free thinker, kind of different type of manager, thinking about the game differently, introducing different tactics. He's very mercurial as a manager. He tends to piss a lot of people off, and he tends to have a short stay with where he goes. And in fact, in Leeds, he probably is best remembered there than any place that he's ever managed. And there's a lot of talks about naming the training ground after him and everything else, mainly for his efforts and role in getting Leeds back up to the Premier League, which they had spent, I think, nearly 20 years outside of their.
Is he the right man for Genoa?
Well, so here's the thing. So when you think about the reasons, I think, why he's being included in these rumors are he tends to want to choose a club with an ambition or a project that matches what he finds to be attractive. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous because every manager would be looking for something similar. Genoa perhaps could represent that for him in terms of the long-term vision from 777, the fact that we have this kind of network of clubs now all of a sudden where we can kind of start to recruit players, the idea. And of course, by the way, I did not mention Bielsa did spend some time in Lazio and Serie A, so he has experience in Italian football, albeit I think that was a somewhat acrimonious period of time where he was there as well.
Small parenthesis, sorry. A few days ago, we did 1 year with 777.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good note.
Okay, Bielsa.
So Bielsa, interesting guy. The biggest problem and question mark with him is this is a guy that is really, really particular. This is not David Ballardini. Okay, this is not a guy who's going to come into a situation and is going to put out some fires. He's going to light some kind of sparks on certain players and find out how to just scrape by and get the results. This is a guy that wants to make sure that his sandwich is taken with the bread corners cut off because he likes it that way. And if the bread corners aren't cut off, he's not going to eat the sandwich, you know? And
sounds a little bit like Gasperini, but
yeah. But, putting a guy like that in the middle of a season in a team, there are a lot of rumors that he would never take a job midseason for that specific reason, because he doesn't have the time to set up the team the way he wants to have the team set up. But I think the biggest concern, one, is that it would just be a disaster if he were to come in there and did not feel like the players fit his ambitions. Or two, he would have a really long list of players to bring in January. And do we want to see that again? January is always a hard window to be really effective in recruiting players, and we've seen that firsthand with our team. So there are reasons to be pessimistic, I think, about it.
No, I fully agree with you. Before we go to possible rumors also about January market and whatnot, I want to close the topic around the coach itself. So yeah, I do agree with you that it sounds a little bit more pessimistic. I think that what you said very rightfully so earlier on the pod, when you said that continuity was a major change, and I think I said that also last podcast, where the unfortunate part is a lot of fans have been used to saying the first issue is just to sack the coach, and we have to get away from that thinking. And to add on top of that, because people love talking about rumors, journalists included, there were also talks about, what about Gilardino? That he's our coach at the Primavera under 19. But at the same time, I was like, no, leave Gilardino alone. Let him do his path. Whenever it's time, if it is a time that for him to be, it'll happen, but it's not his time yet. It'll take at least a few more years for him to get more experience. Then other rumors, and this is going to make you chuckle even more, is our friend, former captain Mimmo Criscito has just announced a few days ago that he's leaving Toronto, my hometown, but my town where I live right now. And while it take me out of surprise, I have read a lot of rumors for the fact that the wife was not super happy about living abroad away from her Italy, the beaches, and so on. Everyone's different, and you have to give it to some people that it's not easy to move abroad. While Insigne is still doing okay, question mark. I don't know if even his children are learning English, but that's a different thing. But you get Bernardeschi, which is fully integrated. And I'm just talking about local news and rumors.
I was going to say, are you canceling the Toronto FC Crescito jersey now? Is that no longer?
I have to. Anyways, so Bernardeschi is fully integrated. He loves Toronto. And just to put the Formica Atomica, which I can't remember his name now, damn it. Anyways, the Formica Atomica, whoever's going to know who I'm talking about, which was a former Toronto FC player, he has a house in it.
Yes.
Come on, tell me, what's his name? He's like this shorty guy, same height of Insigne, but please do the search before we end the conversation. Anyways,
Giovinco.
Thank you. Giovinco, Formica Atomica, which means, I don't know why they call him the Formica Atomica, which is like the atomic ant.
Well, because he's small.
Definitely, like Insigne, but he has a house. His family lives in Toronto and just does not want to leave because they love it here. Anyways, long story short is, the rumors have it that his wife did not want to stay here, so he's moving back to Italy. He did say on his social media that he's going to decide what to do at the end of his career. People are saying, hey, we need a left back. Magically, you're available. He did say that he's ending his football career. Other people even said, well, let's if they're going to kick Blessing out, let's get him as a coach without even, the coach type of the patentino, we call it, like, the being able to coach. So that's just like a joke. Those are all jokes, and just people that just don't know what else to say, and they don't really understand well what's going on and how it works and whatnot. Is it a problem mentality right now, you think?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it could be a problem with mentality. I think that's possible. That's the problem. It's hard to say exactly where it is. I mean, I believe really Blessing has a way of playing that he wants to play. I think it's not worked out, and I think when that happens, you put your hands in the air a little bit, and you wonder if that's what's working or not.
Some people even talked about Zio Ballardini, which let's don't even mention that. He's just like your typical coach for saving it.
I love Ballardini. Don't get me wrong, but like, look, I think the reality of this entire thing is what Blessing is doing right now in the present moment is not working. That is a fact at this point.
You're right. Like, we can even talk about.
Does that mean he needs to be replaced? Is a different conversation, I think, because you could say managers are going to have bad runs of form. They're going to have bad results. And the end of the day, we've drawn 2 and lost 1 in our last 3. It's not calamitous, but it's not. And so, we need to see something change. And I think all of the above are probably true. Like, Blessing is probably struggling a little bit. The players maybe don't know what to do outside of Blessing's instructions, which are not working. And maybe the players also aren't really the best for Blessing's instructions, because once again, I still think it's important to remember that as much as 777 wanted to talk about, we're investing, when we saw the activity happening in the offseason and in talking to a lot of other Genoa fans, we were all pretty nervous about how the season was going to go, because we didn't really sign them any players. We were actually more focused about getting the deadwood out of the team. And I think really that's what they put more of their time on. So I think all these things are true. We need to see a reaction. If we're not seeing the reaction, then I think it is Blessing out. I think we have to say, we have to cut bait with this. We gave this guy how many calendar months? We gave this guy a full summer transfer window. And if we're not continuing to see this come January, then we've got to find a way to bring in a manager that can just give us in that boost, because I think it will be really disastrous for us if we're in the promotion playoffs window. I think once you get in there, anything can happen. And as we've already seen in Serie B, that doesn't always mean we're going to win.
Fully agree. Before we wrap, I just want to say great points that you mentioned. On the road, we're doing amazing, which is still 5 wins, 2 losses, while we're falling behind at home with only 1 victory and 5 times. We haven't lost at Marassi yet, even though it's like a very poor track record. If you look at the victories themselves, 7 points behind Frosinone, 2 points behind Regina, and the break is going to help, hopefully, whatnot. Small parenthesis before we wrap it up again. Canada, US going to be starting not Sunday, because the World Cup is going to be starting on Sunday, Matt. And we just mentioned that just 2 seconds before we started recording, and we're like, what?
I can't get over it. I'm very nervous for our first match against Wales.
We'll talk more about it in the podcast to come. Yes. The match again, so it's going to be US Wales and I was going to say Genoa and Canada, Belgium. So I know my predictions for Canada, Belgium, I can't remember what day they're going to play on, but it's going to be early on next week. Perhaps we're going to have the podcast soon after they played, and I'm going to predict the loss. What do you think about the Wales game? US Wales.
I kind of will predict the loss a little bit too. Look, it's Wales' first game in like 66 years. This Wales team has nothing to lose. And that's the biggest problem for us in this group, is we've got a really strong England team. You've got sort of a bogey team in Iran, who, by the way, I think are going to have their own motivations in some aspects. But with Wales have already, this is a party for them. They've already qualified. They've already done what they need to do. Their fans are going to love them no matter what. They could lose 4-0 every single match, and they would have brought the World Cup back to Wales for the first time in more than half a century. So when you play a team like that, and a team like that has a player like Gareth Bale, who literally single-handedly won the MLS championship a couple of weeks ago with, I don't know if you saw that match, but that was absolutely insane. I don't think it's going to be a very good one for us, but we'll see.
More to come, more to talk about, more to be excited. Canada just finished a friendly just a few minutes ago while we're recording anyways right now against Japan, starting 1 under, like within the 5th minute in, ended up at the 90th plus 5th minute to win 2-1. I don't know. I'm hoping it would be amazing if we tie against Belgium, but you know, I'm just hoping for the best, as our Italy, which is our Italy, has not been.
I'll go sign with Italy. I'll hop. I can't hop on the bad mic, I guess, because they're not.
Still, you could still be a pro Italy no matter what. Exactly, and I apologize if I assumed that, but nevertheless, it's obviously disappointing not to have Italy for the second World Cup in the row. Like seriously, that's stupid.
Unbelievable.
And they played against Albania, winning 3-1, similar to Canada, where they were under 1 goal, and then they ended up winning 3-1. And I think they're playing on Sunday against Austria, maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Just friendlies. Anyways, Matt, this is a wrap. It's going to be sad not to see Genoa playing on Sunday, even though the World Cup is going to be starting. We're going to be playing the Sunday after against Perugia. And when I say we, is Genoa is going to play at Perugia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And Serie A is going to go on a break. And during the World Cup, guess who is going to be watching what type of league in Italy?
Serie B. Let's go. I'm so psyched. It's going to be fun. I'm glad
that's
that we're not
awesome.
taking a major break.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Give us a like. Give us drops us some comment, whatever you like. Give us feedback, everything you want. And we'll talk to you next week. And always and forever, Forza Genoa. You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoa Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.